So, all right, we'll get started. So, thank you all very much for coming
Yes.
to our Meet the Candidate event. Hey, I haven't met you. I'm Julie Wu. I'm president of the Belmont Pan Asian Coalition, which we call BPAC. So just a little bit about BPAC. BPAC, grassroots community-based Pan Asian organizations in the greater Boston area with a truly diverse board and membership. We have members with roots in Taiwan, China, Korea, India, Pakistan, Japan, Thailand, Cambodia, the Philippines, and more. BPAC's mission is to highlight the diversity of and unify our community, increase the civic engagement of our membership, and to work with other community groups at Belmont and beyond. So in this spirit, we have worked with the Belmont Chinese American Association for 4 years, hosting this, which has become only such a photo event that is live now, because most of the other ones are virtual or video. So format will be town hall style with questions and responses, but no debate. Candidates will get 2 minutes for an opening and closing statement, as well as 2 minutes for a response. So actually, it's somebody to time, because the person who's going to time isn't here yet. So, do I have a volunteer? How long? Just up to time, 2 minutes. 2 minutes for opening. That's yeah. 2 minutes.
No one else for response. I'm ready to do that.
What?
Responses to questions as well.
Yeah, response is also 2 minutes. So 2 minutes for everything. We're going to give you a little extra time to answer. It's not this. Let me give it a start. Thank you, Jane. So, we can just give it a sorry, you could just like raise your hand. That would be good. We're not going to
wave vigorously at us.
Okay. So, all right. So I'll be moderating for the Board of Health candidates, and later we'll have Belmont Chinese American Association member Ming Ma, who will be moderating the trustees of the public library, and I'll do the moderator after that.
So the responses are how 2
minutes.
2 minutes per response.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll give a 15 second. Thank you. Okay.
So I guess I don't know if you guys here. All right. All right, so the right candidates. All right, Board of Health. So just for people who don't know, so the Board of Health is obviously an elected body that sets policies and regulations related to health in Belmont. So the board is the oversight authority for the Belmont Health Department. And the department provides an array of services under the general heading of disease prevention and health promotion. This includes, but is not limited to, all of the inspectional services for all food services, swimming pools, day camps, tobacco sales, smoke-free workplace laws, subsurface sewage systems, sanitary housing, dumpsters, mercury recovery program, rechargeable battery collection, and child poisoning prevention, body art, biotechnology and emergency preparedness, communicable disease follow-up, and West Nile virus monitoring. That's quite a collection of services. So, all right, so I'm going to let you guys have your opening statements. We'll start alphabetically with you, Julie.
Thank you. So yes, all of those glamorous services are all under the Board of Health. So hi, I'm Julie LeMay. I have been on the board for 9 years, so seeking re-election for a 4th term. I have been working those 9 years to sort of promote, protect public health in Belmont, community well-being. I am an environmental health scientist with a background in public health. So I have a master's in public health from Boston University. I worked for the Massachusetts Department of Public Health for 5 years, and I was also in consulting for 15 years, environmental health consulting. I believe in sort of open discussion, having hearings and taking community input on any of the public health policies that impact everyone in our community. Given my environmental health background, I think that I have great skills to complement our other board members. So we often have people with a medical background. So we currently have a cardiac doctor and a medical malpractice attorney, which have great skills for, interpreting laws and regulations and sort of the true health piece of it. But I think where I can add a lot of value is the environmental health background. That's sort of something that comes up on a regular basis in town, particularly with, development that happens, like the Bradford and sort of when we're developing any other land in Belmont. So I feel like I can add a lot, and I'm seeking a term for reelection.
Thank you. Okay.
Hi, thank you for the invitation tonight. I'm Michael Todd Thompson. I am recently moved back into Belmont. I have my wife and I have 4 children. I have professionally, I have a doctorate in biomedical engineering and medical physics. I'm a graduate of the Harvard MIT Division of Health Sciences and Technology. And I had opportunity to do clinical rotations in that program at the West Roxbury VA Hospital and the Mass General IBD Clinic. I think some of the main reasons that I want to that I would like to serve on the Board of Health are I'm very interested in providing services to our community along the lines of mental health support, particularly in the schools. I am also running for the school committee, and I'd like to see the Board of Health and the school committee work very close together to support the students and the staff, to help students in their mental health, emotional regulation, social and emotional wellness. I also would like to see the Board of Health begin to branch out and cooperate closely with other municipal institutions. I think Julie would probably agree that there are a lot of aspects of personal health that lie outside the control of the public health institutions. Things like access to stable housing, access to affordable food sources, access to quality healthcare and reliable healthcare. And so the extent to which the Board of Health can begin cooperating with other institutions to achieve those ends is going to be very important. So.
Okay, so for the first question, so this is a particularly challenging time to work in public health for a variety of reasons. Why do you think that you're the right person for the job at this time? Am I going to start with, do you prefer to be called Todd or? So this is a particularly challenging time to work in public health. Why do you think you're the?
So I think my experience in BHA in particular was a particularly good preparatory experience for this time. The philosophy side, so it puts its participants in multiple environments in the laboratory and in the clinic, and challenge to bridge very different environments and be adaptable to those environments, and also be able to communicate with people across pretty significant divides, and the willingness to move into areas for moving forward in an era where there is an uncertain budgetary future and a lot of opposition, as we've seen coming down from at least the federal apparatus.
Yeah, so I think I'm the right candidate because I have a fair bit of expertise in public health, given my educational background, my work expertise. In addition to that, I've also been part of the Board of Health and the Health Department for the past 9 years, so I have pretty good knowledge of the workflow, how to get things done, how to move things forward, particularly from, a fiscal responsibility point of view. We've taken a lot of time in seeking out grants to, by partner that we are working on with Arlington, Brookline, Belmont. And that allows us, so we have a grant from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, allows allows us to have shared services with nearby towns, which is really beneficial because we can sort of broaden our depth in our public health experience and not have to shoulder the burden of those salaries alone. So I think, having that assistance and having that be done under my leadership was really helpful in the past. And I think I'd love to do more like that in the future to collaborate with other institutions and municipalities in our area.
Thank you. So is it fair to ask a question about social work, about social workers?
Council on Aging, so.
So I guess that's kind of my question. So right now, Belmont only has this part-time social worker, and we have nearly 27,000 people, and 10,000 households, 6% individual poverty rate. So that works out to be like 1,600 individuals who are living in poverty in Belmont. So that means that our part-time social worker is responsible for helping like almost, helping those 1,600 people. And so it's about 400 families that I believe the typical ratio is supposed to be about like one social worker for every 50 families or so. So, we do have like a few social workers, like 6 social workers in the schools. But I know there's also like I used to be like 80 families per social worker. So and that's assuming that, that's just part-time social worker that we have. So and I just want to ask, how are we managing that? What families in Belmont need and what we are able to provide? So, and also, as sort of part of that, are you going to be trying to get, like, how are you going to try to get additional coverage for all those families? So I think I started with Julie.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. I mean, that is definitely an area of unmet need. We have several school social workers, counselors, psychiatrists, psychologists. In the past, a couple were funded by the ARPA funding. And then when that went away, that was the sort of the COVID type funding. When that funding went away, those positions were in peril. Our social worker that was, that is currently under the Board of Health, but is moving at the end of the fiscal year to Council on Aging. Her position was on the chopping block if the override hadn't passed. So, her moving to the Council on Aging and us having school social workers means we have this huge gap in the middle of, people from 18 to 65. There's very limited services for them. There's Springwell, which is, social work, like a regional organization that can help out. But that is certainly an area of unmet need. We continue from the Board of Health perspective and the health department to advocate for more funding. I know, we're pulling from a limited pool, but we've been level funded for many years, and level funding over time means a reduction of services. So, I think there is something to be said for the regionalization that I pointed to, some of the opioid settlement money, which there'll be a nice discussion of that next Monday at the select board meeting, that some of that money will be used to support a substance use coordinator that will at least help connect people with, regional services when they need them, even driving them to treatment or, connecting them with much needed services. So to the extent that we can, make use of those existing resources, I'd love to do that.
So this is a significant problem in the community. Right? I mean, when we sat down and talked about it, this was one of the things that you had pointed out. Your to 60, but what do you do, right? You're outside of the sort of protected, classes, right? And they are wrestling with how to fund the budget, how to properly protect, budgeting for social workers and mental health services fight, right? So this is where I think having, individuals cooperating along the lines of having someone on the Board of Health and the school committee makes sense, because that interagency cooperativity and having someone that can see into both departments and how they're working internally, and the crosstalk there is important, and to have a dialogue with the community about how we can come together. I think there's a strong case to be made for youth programs that connect the youth with members in their community, mentorship programs. I know when I was growing up, I had a very significant interactions with adults in my community that helped guide me during periods when I needed that guidance, and changed the course of my life. I know that for seniors, social isolation is a huge a component of personal health that needs to be addressed as well. And I think there's room for programs there as well. So volunteerism, applying for grants, but it's a massive problem. And yeah. So it's hard for me to say much being on the outside.
Yeah, no easy solutions. Okay. So Todd, you had mentioned working with other organizations in Belmont, like the school committee and like other organizations. Like how exactly would you both like envision working with the other committees and organizations in Belmont to advance public health programming? I'm starting with you.
Okay. Well, I think one in the schools, both from the school committee, and from the Board of Health. So I think there's a feeling amongst the nursing professionals in the schools that some people in the community look at them as like the people that put Band-Aids on, right? And there's so much more that they do than that. And I know during COVID, because I've spoken with some, right, there were some individuals that sort of felt like they were sidelined. They were there to help. They wanted to do more. And in some instances, there was funding barriers to that. But these individuals are there with our children and our students every single day. They're often the first individuals that will come into contact with a distressed student or a physically injured student with a communicable disease. So I think having a sit down with them to understand what their needs are, what the concerns are, is a good starting point to begin, working within the school district. And I think both agencies, the Board of Health and the school committee, can do that. I think this cooperativity between the school committee and the Board of Health serves as a really good model for how moving forward, our community health is going to be affected in a positive way, by these interdepartmental collaborations. It's difficult to project into other departments, other boards, because we haven't done it yet, right? So this would be the pioneering model for that.
Julie, what do you think?
Sure. Yeah. So like I said, I've had pretty good interactions with a number of other boards in my time on the Board of Health. We often have to work across different boards, commissions, elected officials, appointed, all of that to move things forward in Belmont. So a good example is the dogs, the Paws in the Park program. And if you have a dog, you're familiar with this. And if you've lived in town long enough, you're familiar with the Goosebusters program, which, it was sort of a great way to bring together dogs and people to solve a problem. And the problem was geese that were pooping on athletic fields. And everybody wanted to sort of solve this. And we had some great people in town who had excellent verbal control of their dogs and were able to let them loose and then recall them after the geese were gone. That has evolved into the Paws in the Park program, that our animal control agent works with the rec department and, the rec committee to the rec commission to, set rules, put up signage. That has definitely evolved over the years in terms of who's involved and, how we're administering that, trying to bring together trying to keep all of our users of the field happy. So the athletes, you have baseball players, you have people who have dogs and maybe don't have children. Everybody wants to use the park. Everybody wants to exist harmoniously. So, we are often working across many boards to do that. We have collaborations with the select board. We've worked with the school committee a lot during COVID to sort of come up with policies that worked for everyone. Like I mentioned, the Metro Public Health Collaborative, we, are sort of bringing together a lot of different experts to move public health forward in Belmont.
So sort of along the same lines, so in the schools, the Youth Behavior Risk Survey shows a disproportionately high percentage of depression, anxiety, self-harm, and suicidality among kids of color, LGBTQ kids, and especially kids who fall into both categories. So does the Board of Health have responsibility to address this issue? And if so, how would you approach that? I guess that's starting to do.
Sure, yeah, definitely. So the YRBS survey, I think, is conducted every other year. When I first joined the board, there was, some reluctance to conduct the survey in schools for a variety of reasons. It took away from learning time. There are some topics in there that parents maybe don't want their children, introduced to or asked about. They don't want the information tracked for a variety of reasons. Sometimes people choose not to participate in it. That's fine. I think from a public health perspective, if you choose to participate in it, it provides valuable information, not specific to students, just sort of in a general way about the student population that helps us target our public health funding. One of the things that's going to come out of the opioid money is that we will have not only money to conduct the survey, every other year. So there'll be money, opioid settlement money that will not come out of any other, we're not pulling from anything else in town. It will, we'll conduct that. We'll have the information necessary to decide where our public health funds can do the most good. And what will also come out of the opioid settlement money is money for, risk. So interventions, different interventions, mostly education in the schools, sometimes coaching, trying to address some of these issues. I don't think there is specific money set aside for equity type issues, but I think that is something that can sort of be explored in the context of the money that's set aside for that.
So I just want to make sure I understand the question.
Sure.
The question is, does the Public Health Department, the Board of Health, have a responsibility to address issues of teen self-harm and
the high percentages of depression, anxiety, self-harm, and suicidality among kids of color, LGBTQ kids, and especially kids who fall into both categories.
Absolutely. And so I have a child that is LGBTQ, and the conversations that we're having right now in our home, that child is a college student. They are in the surrounding neighborhood near their campus. A trans youth was abducted, tortured, and murdered. So the conversations that we're having with our child are, what are the laws in the state that you're attending college? about what sorts of protective devices you can carry with you when you're walking around campus at night. Are you safe? Are you walking with in groups? Call us when you get home, right? And we're doing that trans youth, a culture that's trying to erase their identity. Yes, the public health institutions and public health as a whole has not to take a stand in addressing these issues for LGBTQ and for youth of color, right? And I believe in my candidate statement, one of the first things that I had said was that I affirm that trans rights are human rights. Gender affirming care is a matter of public health, and that they will be protected. So absolutely. And I think that as a community, we can and should do more in that regard. And that's not anything to, that's not an attack, Julie, on our current Board of Health, but absolutely, yes. Sorry if I went over.
Thank you. So, there's a lot of misinformation nationally about vaccines and infectious diseases. So I was wondering, do you feel that there's a need to counter that misinformation in Belmont? How would you propose to do that to increase vaccination rates so that we don't end up with an epidemic of measles or something? So I guess I start with you. So just about misinformation, how do we counter that? Do we need to do this?
So that's a tough problem. Let me first just say I believe in vaccines, their efficacy. They're one of the most important tools that we have. And we chuckle, but I was asked that question when I was getting my signatures to get on the ballot. So misinformation and vaccine hesitancy, you have to meet people where they're at. Something I've learned, I have members of my own extended family who they're very proud of my scientific achievements. At the same time, they're very skeptical of that COVID vaccine and all of these other things, and I can't quite make sense of it myself. So public education campaigns are important. Getting out into the public, allowing people to ask the questions that they have, and to feel safe in expressing their skepticism and their doubts, because I think if they feel like they're going to be ridiculed or dismissed, they won't come forward, and that drives them to bad actors who will welcome them, and that makes the problem worse. And I have lost family members in that extended family circle to that same hesitancy and skepticism. So I think it takes a lot of proactivity on the part of public health institutions in going out into the community and educating those who are willing to receive it, receiving those who aren't willing to receive it, where they're at, and then offering the vaccines to the best that our budget allows, offering the vaccines at low or no cost to members of the community, especially the most vulnerable, economically vulnerable members of our community, making sure that people have access to it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think having not only the access and the education is important. So the health department in the past has put out a lot of information on social media, email, the website about vaccine clinics that are being held. Influenza, COVID, you can come, children, adults, everybody. So the health department offers those clinics. And to the point of making sure that people who are underinsured or, most vulnerable children, our public health nurse that we share with Arlington has recently started offering a program to vaccinate children that may be joining our schools that are not vaccinated. So they could have, family members that have come here for a job, or recent immigrants, that sort of thing, where the vaccination requirements where they came from were different. In order to get them quickly into school, our public health nurse offers them, a visit, a private visit where they can come to the office, they can bring their kids, they bring their family, they get those vaccines. So it can promote public health in our community by making sure that the kids joining our schools are vaccinated and, protecting the rest of the community, and also offering a service that might be challenging for them to get on short notice when they've just arrived in the country.
Does anybody have a question? Here or on?
We'll make announcements that asking if anybody have.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody has a question, you can certainly raise your hand, raise your virtual hand if you're online, and we'll bring it down. We're at half an hour. 7:30.
I was Belmont or help integrate people into state services that are available that they may not know about.
Sure. Yeah. So, our social worker is, when they reach out to us, so we don't often have knowledge of people just coming to our community, but if there is a need and they somehow are identified either through, sometimes it's first responders, police, fire, sometimes somebody in the community, or maybe through the Beach Street Center will refer them to the health department. They are then referred to the social worker. The social worker has access to a wealth of information. So housing resources, food resources that they can be referred to, just to sort of help integrate them into the community, help cover any areas of sort of unmet need, and hopefully get them what they need in the time that she has allotted to her.
I think, another thing too that, we could explore, or should, at least consider is when the social worker isn't around or isn't available, is just like, if I am aware of a service or for example, I know at Cambridge Hospital, right? They have, several individuals down there that when one of my children was eligible for state assisted healthcare, due to reasons, we'll just leave it at that. They really quickly got me connected. And when I happened to meet some friends of ours who were in a similar situation, I was able to walk them down to Cambridge Hospital and say, these are the people that you need to talk to. So there are members in the community who I don't think we always need to rely on, the social worker being there or not being there. I mean, there's a wealth of resources within our community. Belmont is an amazing town with amazing individuals. And so reaching out to people in the community who are part of organizations, or just, if you were an active, concerned citizen in the community and how to reach out and help your fellow neighbors and citizens, please, by all means, come forward and let us know, because that's the kind of volunteerism that we're looking for and can make a massive difference, particularly in a time like this, right? When every institution in not just this town, but across the state and across the country is under, the sort of crushing thumb of, monetary constraints, right? So.
Now, second question. Anybody online?
Just out of curiosity, because I know there was this DARE program at school. I don't know if it's associated with the Board of Health, but it's really helpful for families. I know for addressing topics that's very difficult to be discussed. We also don't have the professional background, but it's really this type of resource. I'm not sure if it's associated with the Board of Health or no, but it's related to health issues. I think will be very helpful for the community. And I also remember there's some webinars organized by the library, lung cancer screening, this kind of educational webinars. Just wondering, maybe just generally speaking, if you feel like there's this type of educational resources you could provide the community with, and also in collaboration with other organizations, whether you envision some of those opportunities.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
What was the program? What was it? Was
DARE.
DARE. Oh, DARE. Okay, the anti-drug.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Was that public health, or was
It's the police department, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
the police
think-
department. I think it's also to sort of build relationships with, community helpers, police, that sort of thing.
Is that still?
I don't know.
Because I know I was there, the t-shirt. When I was, yeah, I don't think it fits anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if it made it over to the middle. It would be at the middle school, I think, now if it was. I don't know where at Chenery, so I'm not sure. Programs in the past, I know when the marijuana issue several years ago, we invited a number of speakers and the temple was nice enough to go space there and had, a pretty good community come out and sort of hear about, marijuana and what was going on with that before the vote, which I think was helpful. So we do strive to have that educational information out there. With the opioid settlement money, I think there's going to be more opportunity for community involvement. I know with the first batch of money, the firefighters were able to offer some training in CPR and Narcan administration, which is one of the things that's allowed under the opioid settlement funding. So there'll be more of that. I mean, ideally, more CPR, first aid, Narcan trainings for even high schoolers. I know that in Winchester High School, it's part of their 10th grade curriculum, I believe, for all students there. I just heard this we have a consultant in town that's sort of helping us with the opioid settlement money, and she also worked in Winchester, so she had some of this knowledge to convey to us. But yeah, to the extent that we have topics and the money to do so, we love to put out the public health education information to the community.
I'm all for partnerships wherever we can find them. For educational partnerships, anything where we can get grants or that are cost saving partnerships. I think I think educational initiatives are great, but things that directly put our citizens together with either healthcare professionals or members of the community, like the firefighters teaching people CPR techniques, things like that. They get people involved in the community, teach them skills, help them to get prepared for public health emergencies or public health. It doesn't have to be like disaster level emergencies, but just everyday things, right? Your neighbor is having a medical, personal medical emergency, right? And you can step in because now you have some sort of awareness of how to handle that situation. It makes you a better community member, makes you a better neighbor. I think it gives you also a better sense of esteem about yourself, right? I mean, I remember when I went through CPR training and I was like, man, if somebody is, having breathing issues, I'm there. I know what to do. If my child is choking on something, I can help them, right? I felt better about and more relaxed in my own skin. I think those sorts of things, they make a more confident, a better connected community, and ultimately a healthier community. So yeah, absolutely.
Should probably close up if you guys want to make a closing statement. You want to start?
Sure. Well, again, thank you for inviting me tonight. I just wanted, we didn't get a chance to touch on some things, but there was, a survey that was done recently through Mount Auburn, and it's 43% of the residents here in Belmont, right, identify illness. And that's something that, as somebody who has their own chronic illness and disability issues, I just would like the community to begin to think about that your neighbors, your friends, the people around you are probably somebody that's very close to you, care about, are struggling with these issues. And the other numbers that I want to throw out there is 88, 85, and 81. So 88% of the people that were surveyed felt like they didn't fit in their community, right? And that's actually a change, a downward change from the previous survey done in 2022, right? So there was a higher percentage of people that felt like they belonged in Belmont before. 85% of the people felt like the quality of life, or sorry, their quality of life, and 81% of the people felt like there were enough resources in the community to meet their needs or to meet the needs of their community members. And that was also a decrease. So in every category that I think was identified as significant, there was a decrease in that. And so I think as a community that's telling us something, I sort of asking for your vote in order to help begin to address some of the issues that I think are underlying that. I'd like to do that primarily by partnering with the school committee to first focus on our students and their mental health needs. But there are broader issues, and I just want to thank you all and again, ask for your vote.
Yeah, so thank you for hosting this event so we can get this out to the community and answer any important questions everybody has. I have enjoyed my time on the Board of Health for the last few years. I'd love to continue giving back to the community. I think my environmental health skills are a good complement to our other board members. I enjoy working with our other committees, commissions, boards in town, and I hope to continue offering my assistance in our, meeting our community's broad public health needs. And please vote for Julie May for the Board of Health. Okay.
Okay, so now Ning Ma of the Belmont Chinese American Association is going to moderate for the trustees of the public library discussion. So
Thank you, Julie.
take it away.
So I really appreciate this opportunity to moderate for the event and prepare a few questions. But first let's hear from Tara and Mark on their opening statements. Why are you competing for this role? How is the competition, and what do you hope to bring? Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm Tara Donner, and I am running for Library Board of Trustees because I believe in the power of reading to connect people to each other. The opening of the new library, it's been a dream in Belmont for so long, will be a testament to the fact that our whole community values having a place to gather, read, learn, and access resources that allow us to connect with each other and the world. It will be up to the library trustees to make sure that this new building meets the expectations of the community that voted to invest in it. I'm running to make sure that the new library fulfills its promise to Belmont. In my experience as a lifelong avid reader and as a middle school English teacher of 22 years, I have seen the profound impact that literature can have in shaping people's understanding of the world. As an 18-year town meeting member and a former member of the Belmont School Committee, I've seen the ways that disconnection from others can degrade the fabric of a community. Having an easily accessible community gathering space where residents of all ages, backgrounds, and interests can come together in person to build bonds with each other and access the variety and quality of resources the library can offer will make Belmont better for all of us. My depth of experience across multiple parts of town government and as an educator uniquely position me to advocate effectively for the library for the benefit of town residents. And I'm looking forward to answering your questions tonight.
Hi, my name is Mark Carthy. Thank you very much for inviting us here today to talk about the library. I think the trustee role is a real calling. My mother read to me and still reads a lot. I got my first library card in those days. They were a physical card. You take a little piece of paper out of the book, put it in the card, and then it would leave it at the library. You take your book away. When you came back, you got the physical card back to be able to get another book. We've moved on a lot. We're more electronic now. I was brought up in Ireland, educated as an engineer. I've worked in finance and management for 35 years. And I think I really bring a financial background to the Board of Library Trustees. The use of the money that the citizens give us are very important to me. And being able to run the library very efficiently is one of my important things. And I think it's a difference that I bring to versus the rest of the trustees. Of course, I'm a first-generation immigrant, proud U.S. citizen, have lived in Belmont for 34 years. Our kids went to Burbank. In terms of participation in town, I've coached girls soccer, been active in town government, chair of the Cable TV Advisory Committee, and of course, a library trustee for 15 years. And so I bring that experience to the job. The trustee role is important. We're really careful stewards of the library resources. We hire the library, we safeguard the physical assets, and we make sure the tax revenue and donations are spent very well. And those are very important things in today's when we have a lack of resources. Especially important to me is maintaining library hours of opening. I think it's something that past select boards have nibbled away at, and we have to fight back to make sure the weekend times are still open. And it's something that's very important to me to keep those weekend times open. In terms of the library role, is it a repository of books or is it a community hub? I think we've been moving slowly from a repository of books towards being a hub. And the new library with its open space will really help us do that. In terms of is that time? Okay, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, you will have opportunity to talk more. So thank you. So the new library is an exciting event. Actually, I just passed by the site when coming here, and it's already looking good. You can see the modern open design, even though it's still just a construction site. Could you describe one program, whether a new program or existing program, you most look forward to see operation in the new library, and why do you see that as a service to the Belmont community, and what skills could you bring to keep that program running? Maybe some from Mark.
I mean, in terms of aspects of the new building that I think will really deliver for us, and me being interested in financial efficiency, the new library will have an efficient electronic way of sorting books when they come in so that they can go right through an electronic reader, and then they can be sorted and then be able to put on the shelf. I mean, some humans still has to put them on the shelf, but there's an electronic reader which will read the RFID cards. And secondly, on the way out, we already have some electronic checkout, and also we'll be able to use that electronic access to check out your book. We'll have 6 checkout machines, which I think, and that reduces the amount of human interaction that we'll have, and we'll have those people be able to do other things in the library.
In terms of what the new library will offer, I think that the expansion of the space and the types of spaces really allow programming which has been cramped to expand and flourish. For example, the teen room in the old library was very small and carved out of the reference room. And the new teen room will really provide a lot more space for there to be teen-specific programming. I know from my own children who are in middle school and high school now, there's no place for kids to go after school, middle school and younger grades, if there's not an organized activity, often which comes with a fee to go with it. Students walk around, they walk to Belmont Center, they hang out in CVS and perhaps drive other customers away from CVS. But, having that teen space for more programming, I think will be a really important place for teens to have a space to go to work on schoolwork, but also to find those connections and bonds that, you know, in the last set of debates, the Board of Health talking about, you know, mental health concerns amongst our teens, having a place to build bonds in person is something that some teens have been missing in the last few years. And I think the library will provide for that really nicely.
So today's event is organized by BCAA and BPAC, and of course, Belmont is home to many different language and cultural communities. Do you see opportunities to collaborate for cultural events, but also for cultural exchange? You know, it's not just like event for the Chinese speaking community or Japanese speaking community, but for learning from each other, you know, for multicultural exchange. Could you speak about your vision about some opportunities?
Sure. I think that again, more spaces available that are more flexible for community programming and including a part of the building that can be accessed after hours. So I think that will be a great resource for community groups of all types. But I think
Yeah, let's continue.
Sure. So as a, you know, the different things that will draw people of different backgrounds in is something I've spent a lot of time on. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity to engage more programming in the library to help, as I was talking about before, bringing people in person to build bonds and connect with each other. I think that one thing that is important to note is that the library doesn't have any funding from the town for programming. All of the funding for programming comes from the Friends of the library, and that's something that I would like to see over time change. I think there's more we could be doing, and I know it's tricky in a tight budget, perpetually tight budget environment in Belmont, but I think that's something that really is a core value of what the library should be providing to the community. And so I think if we work towards, you know, innovating and collaborating in other areas, we could perhaps carve some more budget to support and facilitate the types of cultural programming that you're talking about.
So whether it's a new building or an old building, I think that the diversity of our programs probably needs to increase. The diversity of our staff to reflect the changes in the population of town probably also needs to increase. And the number of materials that we have also needs to change from what it's been in the past. To take French as an example, because we have a lot of history with French, we've had French discussion circles where volunteers come in and people who speak French but want to learn English and have a discussion group. We've done that, but it takes volunteers from outside. We don't really have any specific funding for it. And I think that we need to do the same for, you know, the Chinese speakers especially who want to improve their English. The staff do offer a lot of referrals to English as a second language. And also they know of tutors in town who can help people for English as a second language. And that's a service that they get. And then last, services in foreign languages. In fact, French TV through Hoopla apparently is like a huge user of the digital services in town. And the numbers are staggering about how many French programs are watched by Belmont people through Hoopla.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and also the longer hours, just personally as a library user, I really appreciate those. And for the programming, I think they're very essential because especially during summertime, right? Yeah, the library. So yeah, I heard budget several times, right? And the financial challenges. So obviously, you know, that could be something that you foresee. Just generally speaking, do you foresee any challenge, you know, in your role as a library trustee, and how are you going to overcome those challenges? Yeah. I think, yeah, it's not apartments.
Okay, our budget is about 2.6 million a year. About 68% of that is labor. And so it's very difficult to change that 68%. Then materials are required of about 320,000 because the MAR it makes that about 15%. So for a population of 26,000, I think 15% is the number that you need to achieve. So that number is also kind of fixed. So there's very little to play with outside that. You know, you're into utilities, toilet paper, you know, these things, you can't really change them that much. So there are difficulties that will come up, will be in maintenance. And frankly, that's always where we seem to run short. And our buildings slowly run down and deteriorate, which has got us in the position we were with the old building. So I think making sure that we maintain the building and keep it up over the years, and frankly, have some tough discussions with the maintenance department in town is probably one of the functions that we really need to watch and make sure we take care of in the future.
You know, I've been a town meeting member for 18 years. I've been a school committee member in Belmont, and it is a perpetual challenge that everyone who pays attention to the budget in Belmont knows that we never have enough money to provide for all the services that we wish to provide in the town. And so I think one thing that will be important in the coming years for the library is to pay attention to the new pieces of the building that will require different funding than how the library's been funded in the past. So, you know, there's different equipment, there's different systems, and those things will need to be kept up and maintained. And I think that there will be a small increase projected need in, for example, in the schools. We haven't had professional librarians at the elementary level since sometime around the 2008 economic downturn. And there's been library aid money, but not professional librarians. I think there's definitely more room for collaboration between departments, for example, because I think for the schools, the number of needs are so deep that librarians don't even come close to the top of the list. We have librarians at the library. And so I think that being able to make connections and build connections across those departments is important. I know there have been efforts, for example, at the middle school, which still doesn't have a librarian or library aide, but I think that more work needs to be done there to see where we can have new opportunities for efficiency there.
So those are my main questions.
Can I just follow up
Yeah,
on that
sure.
question? I think it's an extremely important point to collaboration with the school. It's something the town really needs to help us with, both the school and the library. The library does very well in the elementary schools where we hand out library cards and people become members of the library. In the high school, we've really tried, as Tara was saying, and one of the problems is that the schools wouldn't let us, library staff, be on site without a school employee being present with them at the same time. And it's quite difficult to get time from the school people because they're very busy and they already have a schedule. So something needs to be done to be able to, you know, break the deadlock on that, because the library does have a lot to offer for the schools.
I add one follow-up to that too. I mean, I completely agree with Mark, and I also think that something that I would bring to the table as a library trustee is I have a lot of relationships in the school department, in the superintendent's office, in the different administrations of different schools with the BEA, which also needs to be part of the conversation and is, you know, so I think there's relationships that I can help to facilitate conversations there from my time on the school committee and as a teacher.
It's very interesting to learn all the intricacies, yeah, all the challenges we deal with. Thank you. I think we can open up for questions from the audience. Questions from online.
Is there anybody who have a question online? Please raise your virtual hand. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to know more about the online databases and the expense of those and how moving forward we can manage those costs, and also they relate to media literacy in terms of, I guess it gets back to your question of how do we offer media literacy at the library? We don't necessarily have it in schools, and how can we offer additional online resources to help evaluate those?
Well, so there's two things I'd say to that. One, I think the schools do offer media literacy, even though there's not professional librarians at every level, because I think media literacy is built into the curriculum in multiple different subjects, certainly in English, also in social studies, at multiple levels. Of course, I think having a librarian would help. Professional librarians at every school would help that, but I don't think there's no media literacy happening. But also, I think that part of what's important in stewarding the budget for the library is that in order to maintain accreditation statewide and to remain a member in good standing of the Minuteman Network, there's certain baseline budget numbers that need to be met and baseline amounts of spending in different areas. And so I think that overall, the library is a relatively small portion of the town budget as a whole. And I know that over the last 10 years, we've had circulation go up over 22%, but the budget has averaged less than 2%, even less than 1.5% increase per year. So I think making sure that there's more communication and more understanding that the town as a whole and the citizens and residents of the town to understand why we need to maintain a minimum amount of funding for the library, just so we can maintain membership in good standing to access those resources is important.
So we get access to online resources in two ways. First of all, through our membership of the Minuteman Network Consortium, we get access to the digital services that they offer. We also buy some of our own with our own budget as well. Going back to where they're used, in fact, the elderly are a significant draw at the reference desk for media literacy. And helping people get online, getting access to those media resources is a growing part of the questions that come in. And then also people of foreign languages also send in fact, a lot of the time, because they maybe not be able to verbally ask the question as easily, they will email their question in or text it in. And that's the reference desk deals with a lot of questions that way as well. So there are multiple needs in society for these media literacy, not just the schools.
The turn.
I think I went first before, so
Sure.
you can
Oh,
go
okay.
first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for inviting us here tonight. I've been a library trustee since 2010, and I'm still learning on the job. I'm proud of my past services, especially for the numerical and financial analysis that I help with, and I'm always asking about the numbers at the library, how many people are allocated towards digital, towards books, and making sure that we're allocating our resources correctly. I think I've done a lot of work in the past on parking around the library. The parking is a bit of a problem, and it will be a problem in the future, but those signs that go up and restrict parking for people so we don't have commuters using those spots is important. I've also helped remove the knotweed from the stream behind it and brought in outside money to be able to do that. I think that in terms of core values, access for people to education and the equity of access is very important for me, so that we offer services for people in need. And then my professional background really helps to be able to, again, do that financial analysis.
Sure. Well, thank you again for inviting me, and thank you to the audience and the viewers at home for listening. I also want to thank the existing library trustees for the years of work that they did to get a yes vote to the new library. I think a reason why we have a contested library trustees race this year is there's a lot of excitement in town for us to have this new library opening in this calendar year. As we move forward, I think that an effective board of trustees needs to plan for the long-term sustainability of the organization. And I think that bringing new perspectives and new ideas onto the board from time to time is an important element of that sustainability. And so I'm asking for your vote so that I can use my knowledge and experience as a committed library patron, a professional K-12 educator, and a longtime participant in town government to bring new ideas to help guide the direction of the library to ensure that future generations of Belmontonians can benefit from what the Belmont Public Library can offer. And if anyone would like to find out more information about my candidacy, you can reach out to me on my website at taraforbelmont.com. Thank you.
You want to mention that? Yes, so there's a third candidate who couldn't make it tonight, Ed Barker, and he will be coming on Wednesday for our Meet the Candidate event then. So we'll ask the same questions. I'm gonna get those same questions and ask him. So thank you so much. That was great.
You have 5 minutes, right?
Okay, so welcome back. So we're now going to have the discussion for the candidates. And in case you're not familiar with what the town moderator does, town moderator runs town meetings, sets the scope of warrant articles, makes the presentations visual, understandable, and expressing the opinion of the presenter within the scope of the topic. The town moderator also appoints the majority of the warrant committee, which is the town's main financial oversight committee, as well as 5 members of the capital budget committee, majority of the bylaw review committee, and 6 members of the permanent building advisory committee. The moderator also appoints members to special purpose committees, including all building committees. So it's very important on the website. All right, so very important position. So we'll start with opening statements and we'll go.
That's fine. I appreciate the invite to be here tonight. So just a little bit about myself. My family and I have lived in Belmont for 10 years, and I have a long professional background. I am now retired, but a long professional background in public finance, budget, and policy, working in the federal government with multiple, deeply motivated by public service. And the same holds true for my service here in Belmont, where I've been a town meeting member for almost a decade. I've served 6 years on the warrant committee. I served 4 years on the school committee. and I've served on some other town committees as well. I know Belmont and its issues really well, and I'm ready to take on the role of moderator. So why is this job important to me? I'm a big believer in improving things. And while I think that we have a town meeting that functions fairly well, I think there's always room for improvement. And among I've seen, and most of the remaining seats for which people are running are uncontested. And we need for a moderator, whoever that next moderator is, to do extensive outreach with the community to improve and turn around the interest in town meeting and ensure that we're going to have a town meeting in the future.
That's time.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hello, I am Mark Palillo, a longtime Belmont resident, graduate of Belmont High School. My wife Christina and I moved back to Belmont in 1992, where we raised our two children, our son Stephen, a 2011 BHS graduate, and our daughter Sarah, a 2016 BHS graduate. Why am I running? First, there is a need. With Mike Whitmer's retirement, it is more important than ever to have an experienced town leader stepping into this very important role to serve as the moderator of town meeting. Town meeting is a vital component of our town government. It is our legislative body, responsible for the appropriate passage of all of our laws. The moderator's most important visible role is managing and leading town meeting itself. Where town meeting members debate the merits of proposed legislation, this requires multiple critical skills. Expertise of facilitating complex and at times contentious debates, detailed knowledge of the issues that may come before town meeting, the doggedness required for working for many weeks in preparation for the meeting. I have developed these skills and acquired knowledge that I believe uniquely qualifies me for this role. I've been a town meeting member for decades, served on the select board for 12 years, served on the warrant committee for 6 years, the Capitals One, and was a member of Financial Task Force 2, and served on many other committees as well. So I know how these meetings work, and I know the ins and outs of all of the issues that are likely to come before town meeting. The moderator is also responsible for appointing interested and qualified residents to both the warrant committee and the comprehensive capital budget committee and other committees as well. Making appointments takes skill, deep knowledge of the issues facing our town, and experience. As a member of the select board for 12 years, I appointed hundreds of residents to volunteer committees in town. For each appointment, I worked hard to identify qualified and committed residents that would best serve the needs of our town. I would apply these experiences as moderator in making committee appointments. I'm prepared for this role through 30 years of public service to Belmont, and I'm ready to serve once more. Thank you.
Thank you. I feel like we should have fight time.
All right, so thank you both.
Welcome.
So the main job, or like the most visible job that the town moderator has is to run town meeting. What are some ways that, with all due respect to Mike, that you think that town meeting has run really well? And in what ways do you think there's room for modernization or improvement? So we'll start with.
Oh, so thank you, Julie, for that. I mean, I think you're right. I think town meeting has worked really well. And I think we've done a lot of productive things over the past 17 years that Mike has been our moderator. And so I think in terms of how that has operated, it's done really well. In terms of modernizing, first of all, I fully support the conduction of hybrid meetings. I think we need to do a better job there in engaging those that are online as well. I think at times during town meeting, there is some redundancy, although, you know, town meeting is a purest form of democracy. It's the oldest form of democracy. And so many times when the lines are long and people are saying the same things, I think it's okay, but I think it's important at times to remind town meeting members that we need to have a productive, well-organized and efficient meeting. And when there's some redundancy, which there typically is, that we try to sort of manage that more effectively. So in terms of what more we can do to improve it, I think two things. One is to run a more efficient meeting around the redundancy issue, and also to the extent that we are able to have hybrid meetings, and hopefully our future select boards support that we engage the technology aspects of doing that so that the folks at home that participate through hybrid meetings online, that we engage them more actively than historically we've done.
So we absolutely have to improve participation in town meeting in order to have a representative town meeting and therefore a well-run town meeting. And I think that we can do, and Mark mentioned this, but we have to bring back hybrid town meeting. We've tried this towards the tail end of COVID. We know it works. We can do it better. But it is a way for parents who have young children and couldn't otherwise participate because of childcare needs to participate. It's a way for the elderly or those with mobility problems to be present without being physically present in the room. It's a way for people who have to travel for work to be present. And we need to enable as much participation as possible. I think there are other ways that both large and small that we can improve town meeting as well. I think Mike Widmer has done a pretty good job about keeping time, running an efficient meeting. But there are times when people do go past their allotted 3 minutes, and we could improve that by putting a timer on the stage. So that it's not entirely the moderator who's monitoring the time, but we have a physical clock. And there are other ways as well. I am someone who deeply believes in the need to have extensive discussion and debate. And my tendency would be to impose fewer scope restrictions on what's said in town meeting so that they have about the issues before town meeting.
Just follow up, and how do you want to do this, Julie? I don't want to sort of.
Like a minute follow-up.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I do agree on the high point of view clearly, and again, it's the select board, and hopefully the governor extends it, it expires at the end of the, they just approved it. That's wonderful to hear. That's great. So I think times have changed. Clearly, hybrid meeting is the way to forward here. For younger families and younger leaders in our community. I think what we've seen as a town meeting member, there are a number of folks that always get up and speak, but there are members. I remember when I first ran about precinct 3, to get our members in town meeting, maybe younger members that come to town meeting are elected in the particular precinct that don't actively participate. I think it's the moderator's role to reach out to them or create and foster an environment in which they feel more comfortable to talk, because they are all representatives. They are part of the legislative body. And they should be engaged as well. So I think there's things that we could do as the moderator can do to engage them and create a safer, more, collaborative environment where they feel comfortable speaking.
Can I follow?
Sure.
So
this is how the BMC debate went, because Anne Marie, excuse me, Michael.
This is not contradictory.
No, but it's not a debate, but we got into more of a dialogue, which I think is great, Mike.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, go ahead, please. Yeah.
So I, like you, Mark, I also think that we need to foster the skills of our town meeting members, including the new town meeting members. But I think we need to do a little bit more training about what town meeting members can do within the constraints of town meeting. We have a parliamentary set of procedures that are contained within a book called Town Meeting Times. Mark, you've got a copy there. Mine is sitting over there. It is a little bit turgid and at its new price beyond accessibility for some members of town meeting. I think we can do a better job of training and distilling some of that information to our town meeting members so that they are better skilled at operating within town meeting.
So I wanted to just mention folks on the budget, because they're often pretty perfunctory.
Yes.
Even though they have a huge impact on the town. So I'm thinking of that meeting a few years back, think it was 2017, when we spent a long time discussing remaining as non-members of Minuteman. And that went really, really late. And then we voted on a $500,000 fire truck, and there was no discussion. And it just passed right away. So I'm just wondering, is there a way to improve the transparency of the budget process for town meeting, so there is less of this sense that it's already all set in stone, and, you know, or that people just think to just vote along with the warrant committee, or the, you know, just to give more information so people feel like they are having a more participatory. But who went first last?
I think Mike's next.
Okay, you're
Yeah.
next.
So, as someone who's been on the warrant committee and been intimately involved with the budget process, and also with the budget process as part of the school committee, but also as someone who has been involved in some of these discussions and even amendments or potential amendments around funding for our schools. I have to say that, you know, there is so much activity that takes place on the budget before it gets to town meeting. There is a tendency on the part of those who've spent all of those hours invested in bringing this budget to the floor to think that the game should be over. And I'm a big believer that it's town meeting that is the organization that decides the budget. And most of the time, that is not going to differ from the recommendations that are presented to it. But if there are times when town meeting members do have, I think that we should, and I think the town meeting needs to consider those as fully as possible, without criticism that this is coming in at the last minute. And where were you during all of these months of process and during those prior months? But I think we have to have tolerance for enabling town meeting members to be part of the decision making.
So, town meeting is the appropriate. Appropriate or create an environment where more people participate. They don't, unfortunately. I think what we need to do, it's the most important thing we do in town, the operating budget, because it drives our services, our municipal services and our school services. I would institute a program, it's not just reported in summary format, that we have the department heads along with perhaps the subcommittee chairs of the warrant committee present a more summary format of each of the budget sections for town meeting members tonight. So, and I know that town meeting members will say, how much longer are we going to have to spend here? But the most important thing we do as a community is I believe, is our operating budget, because it drives all of the services that we all receive. And there isn't enough debate on it. There just isn't. And even though select board and town administration, school committee, school administration have tried to create an environment where there's debate, it doesn't occur as much as it should. And so town meeting members, representative town meeting members need to be better informed about that. And I would put in a program whereby that report out takes place. I think the other piece of this as well, we need to look at the report that's generated by the warrant committee, which is advisory in nature. The warrant committee does not prepare the budget. Is that the best medium and vehicle to report out? How many of you read it? I mean, I read it. I think it's an incredible report, but there's a better mechanism to report out from the warrant committee, which advises town meeting on the budget in terms of informing town meeting members about the budget and the appropriation that needs to take place. Welcome.
Okay, so you have both talked in other debates or formats about instituting an advisory committee for town meeting. So I'm wondering, what are the problems, or what is the problem that the advisory committee would be being proposed to fix. How would that advisory committee be chosen and what would be?
So Julie, I'm not certain it's fixing a problem. I think it's creating more feedback. So there's so much time that goes into preparation for town meeting. I've been a part of that as chair of the select board. There's hundreds of hours, literally, that go into planning, understanding the scope of the articles, the order of the articles, meeting with the select board, town administration, school committee, school administration, getting input. But what you're not getting input on is from the town meeting members. The judges are as informed as they need to be to make a decision on the articles that are being presented. But we're not reaching out to town meeting members to ask them what do they think, and I think Mike has done that as well in a more informal way. I would establish an ad hoc advisory committee made up of precinct, 2 members from each of the precincts as a volunteer committee, not a formal committee, to also I would conduct weekly office hours for all of the residents and other town meetings that want to participate that perhaps aren't on this advisory committee. And it's a 1-year advisory committee. Each year, town meeting member, the town meeting it dissolves. So I think that if it's a problem you want to think about, it's more feedback in terms of what information do you need as a town meeting member to make a more informed decision. I think we've done a really good job of that. I think it's just one more vehicle to understand that.
So I've been talking about the need for a moderator's advisory committee for a couple of years, and I see it as solving a couple of big problems. And one is simply the need for additional participation in the decision making that takes place. So while as a school committee member, I've made appointments to so many appointments that I can't possibly hope to know everyone in the community who may be a reasonable fit for a committee. And I would want to use a moderator's advisory committee to help identify, interview, and make recommendations on committee appointments. Committee appointments would still reside with the moderator, but this committee would be a formal committee. It would meet under open meeting law. And so it would create kind of transparency, which is a second need that I think that this committee needs to fulfill around the decision-making that takes place with the moderator's committee appointments. And also as part of the process for planning any changes for town meeting. I would rely on this committee to help improve town meeting, identify improvements. So my proposal would require some changes to bylaws in order to constitute the committee, because as I see it, I don't want something informal that I pick. I want a committee that's selected at precinct caucuses by the precincts, by town meeting members.
Let me just follow up on that, please. I'm glad you mentioned the bylaw change, because right now the moderator does not have the statutory authority on our bylaw to form this separate committee. So it would have to be a bylaw change through town meeting. I don't agree that these unelected town meeting members get to choose who should be appointed. I think that's the moderator's role. So I think I've made those committee appointments. It's perfectly fine to get input from town, this ad hoc committee on town meeting matters, but I don't think they should be interviewing and recommending who should be appointed. I think that's the moderator's role. So I don't agree with that. And I don't agree that you need a formal meeting. And thirdly, in terms of the precinct caucuses, I understand that point, but then it becomes a popularity contest. To me, I think what's important to get broad representation across all the precincts in terms of advising the moderator on what needs to take place. And that's what I would seek to do.
Can I follow up?
I don't know if that's in 1 minute or it was 2 minutes. Sorry about that. We're kind of confusing you. So thank you for that. 15 seconds. Yeah.
So this is the moderator's decision-making is one area in town government in which we have so little transparency. And this is not to impugn our Mike Widmer or any of the previous decision-making that's taken place, but having transparency builds trust in our government. And, as I go around knocking on doors and talking to people, there is so little trust. And, frankly, we even hear conspiracy theories about,
Well, that's unfortunate.
about, how the town's finances are being managed. It's really unfortunate, but I think transparency promotes better engagement, more trust. And I think it's absolutely essential that this Moderator's Advisory Committee meet under the framework of open meeting law in order to promote that.
Can I follow up on that? Or is that, no more follow-ups?
Okay.
So in terms of committee appointments, when I got on the board in 2010, we established a formal application process. I would establish a formal application process, visible process for appointments to all of the committees, where there's formal interviews that take place in terms of individuals that want to participate. We also have to do, I think, a better job of letting folks know in terms of the warrant committee. What does the warrant committee do? How much time do we need to spend on that? And it's the same issue with town meeting members as well. We need a more diverse town meeting. We need younger leaders in our community, younger members, younger family members. I think part of the issue is that perhaps they don't understand exactly what that entails. What's the time commitment? They're busy and they do that. What does it entail for the warrant committee, which is a heck of a lot more time than a town meeting member? So I think the moderator, I think it's in the job description of the moderator to go out and actively recruit. Thank you for the 15 seconds, Gene.
Can I have a quick follow-up?
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Hopefully you don't have many more questions. You're going to continue to follow up, Julie, like this, yeah.
So I just wanted to make it perfectly clear that when I'm proposing a Moderator's Advisory Committee that would have to be constituted with some changes in town bylaws and would meet under open meeting law, this committee is not challenging the authority of the moderator. The committee would work in concert with the moderator, and the moderator, by state law and by bylaw, is still vested with the decision-making. It just creates a venue in which there can be some transparency around the decision-making. So if I meet with this committee about committee appointments, the committee may make recommendations and I may go along with those recommendations. I may make different recommendations, but the ultimate recommendation, which I would explain in that committee meeting, would be mine.
I'll let you ask another question, Julie. Yeah, sorry. No more follow-ups. We're done. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Sorry, Julie. Well, this is what, I think this is important. It's informational. We're sharing ideas. That's what we want to do here tonight, right? Yeah, great. Yeah.
Excellent discussion.
Yeah.
Did you want to?
No, I'm done. No, I need you to get through. Yeah. What's the next question?
So we'll be done when you agree that the Moderator's Advisory Committee is not informal.
Okay, guys, let's move on. All right, so actually my next question is, in this time of polarization, there is often heated debate at town meeting. You would have to put your personal opinions aside to resolve disputes. Can you give examples of times that you have de-escalated conflicts? Who went first?
I think well, it's hard to say because no, so that's a great question. We are in a very polarizing environment. I think we're all sort of anxious about that, right, Julie? So it's really troubling times for all of us. Unfortunately, first and foremost, I believe in rigorous and robust debate, without question. I will ensure that that takes place within town meeting, but we don't have to insult one another. We're not going to do that. We're just not going to do that as Belmontians. I believe everyone has the best interest of the town at heart. I have chaired numbers of meetings as a member of the select board, many of them contentious. And many times around budget issues, around the community path issues, I have worked to de-escalate the situation. Because what you need to say to folks is like, look, we can disagree, and that's okay. That's what democracy is about. But we don't need to get angry at one another. We don't need to insult one another. And I reminded individuals in the audience that if we just have differences of point of view in terms of what's best for Belmont. And so that's how you de-escalate. You just remind individuals that, look, you may have a different point of view than me. Mike and I may have different points of view as well. I believe that Mike is willing to work what's best for Belmont. I believe I'm the same way as well. And I would I have de-escalated things by reminding folks that we're all Belmontians, we're all Americans, and we need to sort of respect one.
So I think that maintaining the civility of town meeting is really, really important. And at the same time, it's important that we have vigorous debate and people are allowed to air their differences. At times, someone may raise a criticism and, I think it's important that the moderator make it clear that we are not attacking people here. We are not attacking personalities here. If there is an outcome or a process or an idea, a policy that you don't like, please explain yourself. But there is no need to impugn other people who are all rowing perhaps in different directions, but all with the aim of improving Belmont. In terms of my own experience, I have chaired so many meetings in my federal career in which very contentious debates about agency budgets or even policies. And it's important to remind people that they are part of the process. It's important that we all hear what they have to say, but there are some places we have to get to and negotiate. When I was the chair of the school committee's finance subcommittee, we often had people attending from the public who about various issues involving the finances of the schools. And, of course, I let them say their piece, but we have to move on and finish the business of the meeting.
I do have a follow-up point.
Okay.
You mind? So I do agree with Mike about impugning individuals. I think it's perfectly fine. I think there's a little bit of misinformation on this matter. I would allow it. I think it's perfectly fine to criticize decisions that are being made or have been made by the select board, perhaps the school committee, school administration, town administration, warrant committee, comprehensive capital budget committee. That's okay. But you don't need to criticize the individuals. I think it's perfectly fine to criticize policy decisions that are being made. Town meeting time talks about, it's an important, really nice quote in there where town meeting is in a situation where those that are governed have an opportunity to talk to address those that govern them. So I think it's perfectly okay for town meeting members to criticize board or other committees as well. It's on that one.
Can I just follow up?
Yeah, sure.
So just to add to what you're saying, Mark, I think there are times when it's necessary for the moderator to step in and so I'll just use an example. Let's say we have a town meeting member who says that the select board is treating us like garbage because we didn't get such and such. I mean, I would step in and say, please address the concern about the policy or the outcome or the initiative, but everybody here is working for the betterment of Belmont. And so please do not impugn.
I don't think I've ever been talked like that as a member of the select board. Maybe people felt that way, that I treated them like garbage. Hopefully.
One person.
But I think, look, I mean, we're in fact, we're human beings. We're not perfect. And I think that decisions that are being made at times can be criticized without question.
Okay. So I have a question about fair housing law. So because I was on the diversity task force and I'm on the DEI implementation.
Yes.
Committee. And one of the diversity task force recommendations, one of the things that we noted was that there have been fair housing violations in the town. And also it seems that because fair housing also applies to zoning and development and things like that. And it seems that town meetings sometimes doesn't seem to be aware of that. And so one of our recommendations was to fair housing training for town meeting, board committee, planning board, zoning board of appeals, and select board. So that's because it's against fair housing law to discriminate against, for example, families or
Yeah, absolutely.
or people with, disabilities, et cetera. So when people talk about, number of school children and, the expense of special education, when you're talking about housing, that can be problematic. So I guess my question to you is, how important do you think it is to have fair housing training for all these municipal bodies? And
I'd love to track.
So I absolutely would advocate for that. Yeah, I think it's important. And every time I do hear in the context of any committee proceeding or even town meeting we might do that might lead to more children moving into Belmont, which means more cost. I cringe personally, and so frankly, I think we would all benefit from knowing what the law is, and this is also an issue that came up recently. My Whitmer handled very nicely by calling on town council to address it, to see if we were, if in fact the discussion had shifted into a possible illegality under the fair housing law, and town council for the particular issue that was being discussed concluded that it had not. But I think it is something that we all have to be aware of, and be extraordinarily careful of what the law is, so that we don't overstep.
I actually agree with Mike completely on this. I mean, all of the committees in town, select board, school, we're all required to take ethics training. This is it's a complex area, really, right? I don't think everyone fully understands that. And, we might hear that we don't have the budget to do that. Well, we need to do that, because I think everyone needs to be informed about what our laws are out there and not to violate them, and to be informed. It's a requirement under mass statute to take the ethics training. So I would support that as well. And I also think diversity training too. I know we've done on the municipal side, we haven't quite hired, which I advocated for, a diversity hire like we have in the schools, because we don't have the budget. Well, what's more important than that? I agree with Mike. I think that's important. I think we should institute it for town meeting members, for all of the committees in town, for members of the elected bodies as well.
So I guess one other thing. So speaking of diversity, there isn't that much diversity in town meeting, and I was just wondering how you would approach trying to diversify.
I think it's a real issue. I don't know what the percentage is, but I think Asian American population today is close to 20%. Clearly don't have that representation in Latino and Hispanic. When I was on the select board in reaction to the diversity task force report. I mean, I would work really closely with the DEI implementation committee, with BPAC, with BCAA. What are the obstacles? What has created a situation where we're not engaging members of the minority community in terms of participation? Do they not understand what exactly it is to serve in town meeting? I don't have any answers. I don't think you ring doorbells. I think you are actively engaged as a moderator with committees like that you co-chair with Kimberly Haley Jackson, and organizations like this as well, to understand how can we reach out to that community to inform them more about what it means to serve. Because clearly there isn't enough diversity. We need to engage younger leaders in town. There are future leaders in our community, and younger families as well. So I think it really is in the job description of the moderator to do more around that, without question.
I agree with Mark, and this is also an issue that's near and dear to my heart, because my wife and son are Asian Americans. I think it's absolutely important that the moderator reach out and work with community groups, including the Belmont Pan Asian Coalition and the Belmont Chinese American Association, to try to boost interest in the Asian American members of our community in running for town meeting. There are other community groups like Belmont Against Racism that I think one could also work with. It's, I've even at a couple of the recent Lunar New Year events passed around flyers encouraging people to think about running for town meeting. I don't know. I haven't checked the results to see if any of those people that I talked to ultimately did, but everybody in our community deserves representation on renters and homeowners, Asian American, people of color, everyone. And I think that the moderator has to work with every conceivable organization in our community to try to make for as diverse and representative a town meeting as possible.
Yeah, what are the challenges? What are the obstacles? What are the barriers? I don't think I fully know that. So I think, how do we address it? Is it learning more about what town meeting is, to educating the public about what it is to serve? So I think there's so much more that you can do as a moderator to engage in that way. Welcome.
Any question? Continuing on what you just mentioned, there are several other towns that have already started the process, but would you support non-citizens to vote within town election for town meeting members, or even represent as, like permanent residents within Belmont, or alternatively lowering the age to 16 to encourage more young people to participate in the local politics?
Is that a moderator question?
Well, it's a town meeting member.
Is it
Also,
to vote?
well,
Reduce the age to 16? I mean, I'm just trying to understand, John. Is that a moderator question?
As town moderator, you could encourage town meeting member to petition the legislator of Massachusetts to provide.
I think so, John. Yeah, but go ahead, Mike, if you want to answer it. I'm just trying to understand the question and role of what we're running for here. But
yeah, so I think the question is, do we support the idea of non-citizens participating in town meeting? Running for and participating in town or voting in town elections. But you have to be registered to vote to run as a town meeting member. And if you're not a citizen under current law, you can't do that. If there's a legal avenue by petitioning the state to allow non-citizens to register to vote in local elections and thereby also serve as town meeting members, just as they can currently serve as members of committees in town. I mean, I would be very supportive of that.
I think it's something that needs to be looked at. I don't fully understand the question, to be honest with you, in terms of the role of the moderator, Jung, but certainly know that debate's out there. And if there's a legal avenue for non-citizens to vote, I mean, certainly I wouldn't get in the way with that. But I don't know what role would the moderator play in that? Is that more select board, executive committee, executive office that looks at these issues rather than the moderator? So I'm not certain I fully understand the relevancy to what we're doing here. Like, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I think the relevance of the moderator to the question is, are you supportive of non-citizens serving in town meeting? The moderator has to be concerned about whether town meeting is representative.
That's not the moderator's role, Mike. I mean, it's an election issue. It's like, can they be elected to be a representative in town meeting? That's not what the moderator decides.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. That's a legal question for whether someone could be, as a non-citizen, be elected to elected office in our town.
Yeah.
And I think that's beyond the scope of what the moderator's role is, frankly.
I disagree.
Okay, it's fine.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Any questions?
Good luck.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
So I'm interested in how we can use, we're very fortunate now to have a Belmont Global Voice, you know, a newspaper. I'd like to hear how you might use the voice of the newspaper to assist town meeting in your role.
Well, I think you could use it. I don't know if you went first before.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think you can use the voices. I mean, I think we've all seen the articles from the candidates. I think they've been terrific. It certainly has helped me to understand more completely about the candidates that are running for elective office this year, Joyce, Jean. And I think you could use the voice as a way to report out on aspects of town meeting, maybe have a little column from the moderator. I think you could use the voice as well and outreach to the greater community about the need to participate. Mike's right. There are 10 seats that were open. That's unfortunate. And I think you can use the voice as that vehicle because I think everyone receives it. It's a wonderful newspaper. They're doing great work. So I would see that as a way to have a moderator's column, reporting out on town meeting, reporting on upcoming town meetings and what the articles are, reaching out to the broader community in terms of participation in town meeting, educational forums, things of that nature. So I think that's a great question. I think there's certainly a vehicle that we should consider using.
I also think that it would be a wonderful opportunity if the Belmont Voice would be open to hosting a periodic moderators column to help inform the community and town meeting members about the issues coming up at town meeting or things that have taken place at town meetings that have already occurred, as well as using that tool to help encourage more people to run for town meeting and to help stress the importance of what happens at town meeting. Beyond the Belmont Voice, I'm interested in creating a periodic moderators newsletter or bulletin that could cover some of those same topics. Maybe it's something that could be mailed out with utility bills, just like the town administrator's monthly report is, although I don't know that it would be a monthly type of thing. It's something that we have to look at. We need more engagement with the community, and these are a couple of possible ways to do that.
Good idea, Gene. Thank you.
Go back to the issue that you brought up at the start, which is the preparation of people for town meeting. And you do a great job, but one of the things that is frustrating there is to sit there with the long lines of people asking questions about material that's already provided
Right.
in advance. And I think that in our precinct 1 and 7, we meet beforehand and go through the materials with the town people. And people who don't ask questions, in town meeting are all asking questions in those meetings. And they come in prepared, ready to vote. And somehow, our system seems very inefficient the way it is right now. And I think it deters people from running the town meeting. There's night after night after night of like long lines of people asking questions. There's something a little bit wrong with what we're doing right now. I don't know if you comment on that.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate. I know that there are a goodly number of town meeting members that it doesn't matter how much material you put in front of them, they're not going to read it until they get to town meeting, and then maybe during the discussion or debate, they'll be frantically looking through their papers, trying to do their reading there. It does take time to be prepared as a town meeting member to understand the issues that are taking place there. And ideally, you want people to show up prepared because that improves the efficiency of the discussion, and it reduces hours from the town meetings that we sometimes endure. I think that the moderator can work with the select board and the various committees or even citizen petitioners who are bringing articles to town meeting, to provide better summary information, that could help with some of these people who will not read lengthier materials. I mean, there's more work to do, no doubt, but some people are going to show up unprepared, and there's not much you can do about it.
I mean, I think that's right, Mark. It's a good question. I mean, I think the moderator's role, because I've seen it, is to ensure that town meeting members are as prepared as they need to be to make a decision, to anticipate the questions that will be asked, to understand who can answer those questions when they're asked at town meeting, on town meeting floor, provide the necessary information in advance of the meeting, perhaps even attend the precinct meetings. But be that as it may, Mark, there are going to be times in which town meeting members, either because they're busy or they just don't want to prepare, are going to come to the meeting as, unprepared, not having read the materials. The materials are there to be read. And so perhaps summary format, but, this is a choice that our, representatives choose to make in terms of not being as fully prepared as they need to be. I mean, it's the purest form of democracy. It can be somewhat chaotic at times, and the meetings can go long. Understand the frustration behind that. We can likely do more to ensure that they're better informed. But if you've given them everything that they need to make an informed decision, you've given them everything they need to make an informed decision.
So
Thank you.
it's 9, so.
Yeah, sure.
We have one question.
One question, okay.
Jeff, you're allowed to speak now.
Oh, great. Thank you. Hi, Jeff Lubian, town meeting member, precinct 7, a member of the warrant committee. One thing I've noticed, and it actually just came up recently with the most recent special town meeting. And I want to first disclose, I understand the time constraints and a lot of things take a last minute. But one thing I've found and I've tried to work on, and you guys can continue the torch hopefully, is get the information in front of people earlier. On a Friday to send a ream of packets of information for a Monday meeting. People have plans over the weekend. It's just difficult for everyone to digest that. I even find that, if we know we're going to have a summit, post it a couple weeks in advance. It doesn't have to be posted that Monday for a Thursday summit. Post it 2 weeks so people know it's there. And whatever we can do, and I know some of it isn't. I've been behind the scenes, like I've been part of those planning meetings, and they are strenuous and a lot of work. But anything we can do to get the information and the postings of information earlier, and whatever the moderator, whoever it may be, can do to help facilitate that, I think will help. So just wanted to get
Jeff, I agree with you. I think it's totally unacceptable to get information at the last minute, particularly on zoning articles, which is so complex. We all are challenged by that. So I agree with you completely. I mean, to the extent that information is delivered at the last minute, frankly, the article shouldn't be debated. How many members have just not had the time to really be fully informed, those that choose to want to be? And so I agree. I mean, I think you would defer action on the article. You want to ensure that even if it's over a weekend, people aren't really working over a weekend per se, well in advance. That's the challenge of preparation, Jeff. That's what you need to spend time on to ensure the town meeting members are fully prepared, and it takes weeks and weeks of advanced preparation. So I agree that last minute information, it's totally unacceptable to at that point entertain debate on that particular article.
I agree.
All right.
We're on agreement in there. I think we agreed more than we did, other than one of the questions that was asked.
One more question, and I would like 30 seconds from each of you to say something nice about the other person.
Okay, I'll go first. So that's really nice you to say that. You want to go first?
I think it's my turn.
Oh, you go first. Go ahead. That's a good question, John. Thank you for that.
Your turn, Mark.
Okay.
So I
I
have known Mike for a long time. I have a great deal of respect for him. I think he served admirably in the school committee when he was a representative to the warrant committee as well. I appreciate the fact that he's a strong school advocate, which I have always been as well. And we may not have always agreed on some issues, but you've always treated me with respect. And I think because of that, he's served the town in a very good way.
I appreciate Mark. Mark and I can have coffee and,
Which we have.
and we have,
Yeah.
and we can talk about a lot of things, including business, but not just business. And, Mark is a really good guy. And, I very much. I very
John,
much
that's a great
appreciate
question
that.
to ask. I appreciate that. Thank you.
With that,
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
let's do our closing statement.
Okay. I think I'm first.
Is that okay? We're replying. Yeah.
So first, I want to thank the Belmont Pan Asian Coalition and the Belmont Chinese American Association for hosting tonight's town hall. I think it was a good discussion. I really do. I enjoyed it. In closing, I also want to state that I'm running for town moderator because I have a strong desire to continue to serve our community. I've said this before. My parents, my late father, Anthony Palillo, and my mother, Mary Palillo, instilled in my brothers and I the need to give back and serve the community you live in, which is Belmont for me. I love the town of Belmont. It is a community where you can walk down the street and have a sense that the people that live here are looking out for one another, that they are committed to doing what is right and want to see things improve. I'm proud of my service to our town and the significant things we have accomplished together over these many years. It has been my distinct privilege and honor to serve our community. If elected as your town moderator, I commit to you that I will build on the successful legacy of our current moderator and will continue to develop the office so that it meets the needs of the future. I will also plan to do the following. We've talked about this. Establish an ad hoc moderator advisory committee comprised of town meeting members to provide feedback and advice on all town meeting matters. I will continue to reach out to all residents for feedback through weekly office hours. I will develop a formal and visible application process for committee appointments. Continue to strongly advocate to the select board the need for hybrid town meetings without question. Continue to broaden participation and diversity within town meeting through active recruitment of town residents, working closely with the DEI Implementation Committee and other stakeholder groups to address any issues that may create. Most importantly, I will foster an environment at town meeting where all voices will be heard. All voices need to be heard, and work to encourage more town meeting members to participate in the debates. Finally, whatever improvements are brought to town meeting, my overall goal will always be to ensure the town meeting meets its core purpose to make decisions that best serve the needs of the town we all love. I ask for your support and vote on April 1st. Thank you.
So I also want to thank the Belmont Pan Asian Coalition and the Belmont Chinese American Association for hosting this event. I think it's wonderful. It's wonderful outreach to your community and a great service to all of Belmont. I'm looking to build on my public service commitment and experience in Belmont's town government because I'm interested in improving things. I'm interested in continuing my public service. And if you share my vision for a better moderator, a better town meeting, better transparency around decision-making, I'd appreciate your vote on April 1st. We'd all benefit from a moderator doing extensive outreach with the community, encouraging more participation. We'd all benefit from the greater participation that having a hybrid town meeting would enable. We'd all benefit from a transparent decision-making process, both about town meeting and the moderator's committee appointments. And that's why creating a formal moderators advisory committee that will meet under open meeting law is so important. We all benefit when the moderator is committed to running a fair and efficient meeting, prepared to work with all participants to ensure that we have the skills and the information for town meeting to be successful. And we all benefit from a culture of continuous improvement in our community. And I think that's what I bring to the role of moderator. So these are some of the things that I stand for. And if you believe in these things too, I'd appreciate your support on April 1st. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.